There was nobody like him.
Several gunshots, possibly a drive-by. Witness advised a black Dodge Journey. Shot somebody in a black BMW.
XXXTentacion.
All I heard was one gunshot, like pow.
I was really shocked. I couldn't believe it.
Witness advised a black Dodge Journey. Black Dodge Journey. Black Dodge Journey.
His music reached millions, and his personality touched the hearts of everyone who knew him. He breached the norms of the celebrity lifestyle and inspired an entire generation. But unfortunately, fate did not return the favor as he faced an untimely death in the most gruesome way. After his tragic death, he left behind an irreplaceable black hole in the music industry. However, this black hole sucked in nothing but the money-hungry hyenas of the music industry. Dirty record labels that couldn't care less about X's legacy, but rather how they could maximize profits from his death, and greedy corporations that were also looking to profit from X's name. So after 5 years, what has happened to X's legacy in music? Has it completely derailed from his original purpose? Or has his label honored his legacy? To truly understand the full depth of X's story before and after his death, we have to go back in time. It all started on January 3rd, 1998, in Plantation, Florida, a troubled area that in 2014 was ranked as the 8th most dangerous city of its size. With an environment as dangerous as that, it's no surprise that X had the crime-filled life that he had at such a young age. After he was born, X's parents had already separated, and for the first few years of his life, he would visit his mum and dad until finally settling with his dad. But after some relationship problems with X's new stepmom, out of frustration, she called Cleopatra, X's biological mother, to come and pick her son up. His mother worked as a dancer and couldn't provide for him as she should have, often leaving him in the care of random friends or babysitters. And the time she was home, she often brought other men with her. She truly believed that if he had food, water and clothes, he was fine. But this emotional disconnect would prove to birth more trouble in the future. Fast forward a few years into his teens, and X was kicked out of school left, right and center. He had developed dangerous and violent tendencies and was itching to fight anyone that challenged him.
Nah, cause I just fade niggas.
Why, you're a fighter? You've been getting a lot of fights?
Bro, I've been fighting since I was a kid.
Fuck.
What, he's always been throwing the hands or what?
I mean, I've been there plenty situations, like plenty fights. Like, I knew him for 4 years. Yeah, we all know.
He eventually got kicked out from his mother's home and sent to move in with his grandmother in a neighborhood known for its drugs and violent crime. And surprise, surprise, X's behavior had evolved from petty school fights to dangerous gang activity, where he eventually got a hold of a firearm and began to take part in armed robberies, which landed him in a Florida juvenile detention center. But some would say that this was a blessing in disguise, as he would go on to meet Stokely Goldborn, the man who would later become Ski Master Slumpguard. The reason why this encounter was so critical is that Ski Mask had completely changed the outlook X had on life, which would steer him away from the gang life to focus on music and changing the lives of others.
Yeah, we need an outlet to just stop getting in trouble. He ordered the stuff off of eBay. It was like a snowball mic, Audacity, and like a laptop.
And the pair came together like glue, releasing their first piece of music as a duo on SoundCloud. Although his talent wasn't recognized right away, the effects of staying on the path of music had portrayed itself right away. X had stayed away from the life of crime and avoided more jail time for the moment, and it finally paid off. On December 2015, he released one of his most infamous tracks to this day, Look at Me. But the infamous track didn't blow up for a while, approximately the first year. However, whilst Look at Me was waiting for its time to blow, X wasn't sitting doing nothing. During this cooking period, X had built up an extremely loyal fanbase, an entire mob that was utterly infatuated with him. And what was different about X was that he reciprocated these same feelings back. Some would argue that these very same fans are what propelled him to fame and got him the opportunities he had.
I have a cult fan base. I don't have like a weak ass fan base. Like,
Right.
I speak to my fans. I help my fans. Like,
Because
I try and be in depth, you know?
your shit is weird because you have a crazy ass following on social media and stuff, and like it's not like necessarily the craziest like numbers, like 10,000 or whatever. Or how many are you on SoundCloud?
SoundCloud, I'm at
18.
18.5.
But like the numbers are retarded because it's like you really seem like, and just the number of people who have asked me to interview you is fucking insane. Like considering, you know, that you're like an underground artist, like the number of tweets I had to read about you, man, are like.
The crime-filled life he lived in the past began to creep in again, as just a few months later, after his appearances on No Jumper and other social media platforms, X was arrested for robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. After being bailed out, he was arrested once again 3 months later for domestic violence against his girlfriend at the time. Things seemed to be crashing down for X. The light he had reached and the potential he had seemed to be fading away. But as many things that happened in X's life, this was a blessing in disguise. The reason I say this is that jail time and crime were things that were glorified in the rap industry. As a result, it was during this jail time that the name XXXTentacion was heard everywhere and began to move from the underground and cracked a hole into the mainstream. The amount of attention he was getting during the 6 months in jail was insane. He was being offered multi-million-dollar deals from huge labels. Everyone was awaiting his grand release. Being finally released on April 2017, X had become a household name, and that small loyal fanbase that fought for his fame had multiplied endlessly. He had finally made it big. After a multi-million-dollar music deal, he began to live large, buying a $1.4 million house in his home state, Florida. Some say that despite X's incredible wisdom for his age, his quick rise to fame and lack of experience in being in the public eye contributed to his saddening death.
Several gunshots, possibly a drive-by. Witness advised a black Dodge Journey. Shot somebody in a black BMW.
Oh man, what a world, the things I hear. If I could act for my revenge, no,
I was really shocked. I couldn't believe it.
All I heard was one gunshot, like pow.
A growing memorial for rapper XXXTentacion.
It was the 18th of June, 2018, his last day. X withdrew $500,000 in hopes of purchasing a new motorbike with his uncle. Nobody knows why X wanted all that money in cash, but this crucial decision may have changed the outcome of that fateful day. Because as soon as X left the bank and made his way to Riva Motorsports, he was unknowingly followed by 4 suspicious men: Dedrick Williams, Trayvon Newsom, Robert Allen, and Michael Boatwright. Approximately 10 minutes later, after withdrawing the money, X and the 4 criminals arrived at Riva Motorsport. Whilst X was looking at the bikes, 2 of the men, Dedrick Williams and Robert Allen, in a sickening manner, walked right past X almost like they were studying their victim. X took a quick glance at them and thought nothing of it. Little did he know, the plan for his death was already set in place. As the other 2 men, Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright, were waiting outside in a black Dodge Journey, and only 25 minutes later at 3:55 PM, X and his uncle were trying to leave the dealership in their vehicle. A black Dodge Journey quickly blocked their path, and 2 masked men jumped out and held X at gunpoint, demanding him to give them his LV bag filled with cash and his gold chain. After an intense back and forth and a struggle, the 2 eventually got a hold of X's belongings, but in the heat of the moment, the unthinkable happened. The entire music industry and its fans were left devastated with no answers. What was their motive? Why was the money not enough? Was it really just an orchestrated setup by an unknown puppet master? But no matter what questions they had, one thing was for sure: their beloved artist was gone. And to add insult to injury, Dedrick Williams, one of the scummy criminals, posted a video shortly after X's death in which he was shown dancing and throwing around $100 bills as some sort of victory dance. But whilst all this was happening, X's career had a ridiculous spike in growth after the news spread about his death. In that same year since his death, more than 4.5 million copies of his records had been sold, whilst he also received major award nominations for the first time. In fact, a week after X's death, his debut album in 2017 sold an extra 500,000 units. Although he's now gone, X's legacy lives on through his music. However, how that legacy is perceived lies in the hands of a few money-hungry individuals, and it all started with Spotify's hypocrisies. Just a month before X's death, Spotify refused to advertise and have his music on their site, even banning him from their other playlists. And due to his legal troubles, they claimed that their business was morally opposed to the abusive actions of the artists. And this of course would have been fine if the same rules applied to everybody, but as it came to people's attention, Spotify had other artists on their platform that were facing very problematic legal troubles that they constantly promoted. The simple truth was that Spotify simply cared about the money, and this was evident in the ways they treated artists that made them much more money with much more sincerity than smaller artists. But this wasn't just a theory I made up. Just a couple days after X's death and his name blew up everywhere, Spotify added some of his most popular songs to their popular Rap Caviar playlist and then proceeded to put his name on their front page. It was obvious that Spotify's actions following X's blow up after his death was one of greed and profit instead of love and respect. And when it comes to X's label, it gets even worse. When an artist dies, the demand for their unreleased work increases massively. However, this work was unreleased for a specific reason, oftentimes only known by the artist. And at the end of the day, the music that makes it out to the public is a core principle that is up to the artist to decide. So is it morally right for a label that has money as a main goal in mind to have control over an artist's legacy after their death? And unfortunately, labels often release unfinished music from deceased artists to make a profit. Releasing music after death could be considered a continuation of one's legacy, but others believe this is just exploitive. According to Georgetown Voice, record labels seem willing to exploit the legacy of these artists in order to capitalize off the enormous demand. A great example of this that involved X was shortly after his death in 2018, in which Spotify's most played song was Falling Down, an unfinished collaboration featuring Lil Peep and XXXTentacion, which was released right after both parties had passed. The Georgetown Voice described the song as a shabby compilation of unused sounds meant to bolster a legacy which should have been allowed to continue on its own. However, the fact that their labels took advantage of loyal fans' outcry to profit and produce a sorry result wasn't the only thing wrong with the situation. It had been widely known that Lil Peep disapproved of X's character and former charges of abuse, yet the song was decided to be released, and this is where we see signs of exploitation. What makes it even worse is that these labels don't give money to the families of the artists. It's very hard to trust what was actually created by the deceased artist. People can manipulate the work of any artist through technology and have the capability to recreate their vocal chains without it costing money. Because of this, I'd agree that yes, this is exploitive. The release of music after an artist's death causes controversy because the artist does not have the agency to approve what is released. Record labels profit off of the music they distribute, which may not align with the artist's original creative intentions. So what does this mean for the future? Is this the type of situation that every artist will eventually fall into? Or will the music industry finally compromise and come to an agreement on how to honor an artist's legacy? Only time will tell.